Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inside the Birds pregame show. I'm Geoff Mosher with Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds. And for every pregame show, we bring in the man who watches more NFL tape than you could actually imagine. And he breaks down the tape of both the Eagles and their opponents. And that is Greg Cosell. And fellas, we have a pretty interesting week 5 matchup here between an undefeated Eagles team at home 4-0 at the Link, welcoming a Broncos team that is 2-2, but they've lost both of their games to two very good teams and by a total of 4 points. That's a 1-point loss to the Colts and a 3-point loss to the Chargers in week 3 before they stomped on the Cincinnati Bengals last week by 25 points. So we got a very, very interesting matchup, and I think it's safe to frame it. We'll get into the injuries and we'll get into the styles and the offense versus defense. Adam, I think it's safe to frame this as a game where you have an Eagles team that's really trying to get right in certain areas and a Broncos team that may have just got right last week and wants to put behind some really close losses.
Oh, yeah, man. Because they could easily be 4-0. You remember what happened with the Colts game?
Yep.
On the leverage play, so they lost that. And the other game, they blew it in the fourth quarter to Justin Herbert brought them back with the Chargers. So, yeah, they could be 4-0. They made the playoffs. That stunned me last year. I was not seeing that. But Sean Payton's obviously a very good coach, and they got things turned around. And Vance Joseph, and we'll get into man coverage and all that they do. This, to me, by the way, on Sunday, the game time temperature is going to be very warm. We're not having to worry about weather. It's a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to this one.
Greg, both teams inconsistent offensively, but carried so far by what they are defensively. Agreed?
Yes, and we can talk about that for sure. I mean, first of all, the Broncos last year led the NFL in sacks, and right now, not counting, of course, last night's game, I didn't check those stats, but they lead the NFL in sacks after 4 weeks as well. So, I mean, they're pretty good.
Absolutely. And if for those who are really analytically driven, the Broncos, if you don't just look at sacks and hurries, but even win rate and things like that, the Broncos are not only very talented, but deep with lots of good pass rushers and, of course, a very good secondary. So this will be a very interesting test for an Eagles offense that is still trying to find itself and has been very sporadic. Adam, as we get to the injuries, there is no question that the end of the week for the Eagles was a lot better than earlier in the week, but also, unlike last week, the Broncos are a very, very healthy team as well.
Yeah, the Broncos historically have been one of the healthiest teams going back a number of years. But, so the Eagles got good news because, man, Dallas Goedert, when he got added to the injury report on Wednesday again, I'm like, that knee again, but he's going to play. Jalen Carter is something to watch in this game. Is he going to come in and out with a shoulder issue, which we put it out when he was drafted, he had a shoulder issue at Georgia. And this keeps recurring with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's something to watch. And this is why Byron Young, who we didn't know a lot about, and Greg gave us a tape breakdown when the Eagles claimed off waivers, he's playing. I mean, remember they traded Thomas Booker, so he's that first guy off the bench.
Right. The big injury story that we'll have to wait is Nakobe Dean. He was ruled out for this game. He is in the 21-day practice window, and next week will become sort of interesting for him too, because as a Thursday night game, you don't have any actual practices. You have jog through practices. So we won't be able to see Nakobe Dean won't be able to really test himself in a real practice environment until probably the week after. That doesn't mean he won't be active for next week, but I almost see it as an unlikely scenario. We just have to see what the coaches want to do in that case.
That's going to be a fascinating situation to watch, as we discussed last week with the Patreon group about what happens with Nakobe Dean when he's truly ready to play.
Right. The Broncos injury report, I believe, came out. And Adam, do you have there's no one that is out, correct? Of relevant?
Yeah, they're pretty clean. They're pretty clean, and that's part of it being a good football team is like having guys at the end of the year.
Yeah.
If you look at the 22 season, remember how healthy the Eagles were? I think all 22 starters were in the lineup.
I remember that.
Chiefs in 22. That's part of it. And but I'll say one thing, because fans get sometimes upset. Oh, why do you give the other team respect? Well, we're not taking a side here. We're just telling you this Broncos roster, Greg, is pretty good.
Yes, it is pretty good.
Comparatively.
We'll talk about their defense in particular, but they're pretty good across the board.
Well, let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. And I want to start off with this Eagles offense against a Broncos defense, Greg, that ranks 8th overall as far as total yards. I believe even their scoring defense, they have an even higher rank, 5th overall. They rushed the passer, as you mentioned, extraordinarily well. They led the NFL in sacks last year. And what I find interesting, by the way, right, this as through 4 weeks, they are 2nd in the NFL in sacks per pass attempt. What I find interesting about them, Greg, is that if you pull common NFL fans and show them pictures of the Broncos' best pass rushers, I bet you a lot of them couldn't identify him. For whatever reason, Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper just don't get the same headlines and recognition as Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons.
No, and again, whatever this means, people can take this stat for what it's worth, but right now Nick Bonito is 2nd in the NFL in pass rush win rate. But, you know, it's funny. I did Bonito coming out of Oklahoma, and I don't know what he weighs now. Sometimes guys gain a few pounds here and there, but he probably weighed about 245. And I really liked his tape a lot because you see what he is in the NFL. To me, that's what he looked like in college. You know, and the only concern that I had was the speed to power, which he has shown. But this is a really intriguing defense because Vance Joseph tends to be very opponent specific. You know, for instance, when they played the Colts earlier in the season, he just blitzed and played man a ridiculous amount of both. He doesn't do that every game. Right. So you don't know how he's going to see playing the Eagles, particularly this version of the Eagles when they're not really at this moment in time, they're not running the ball particularly well and they're not throwing it particularly well. So I don't know how he sees playing this version of the Eagles. But one of the things they do really well, guys, because don't forget, it's not just Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. John Franklin Myers is a very good player. Zach Allen is a really good player. They like to put 5-6 guys on the front because what they do with their pass rush very often is what we call they gap you out, meaning they create one-on-ones. And it's, you know, people tend to look at just edge rushers. Sure. People might think, oh, Cooper won't have a big game. He lines up on the left side of the defense. He's lined up on the left side of the defense on every snap but one through 4 games. Benito's lined up on the right side of their defense on every snap but 7 through 4 games. So they don't really switch sides. So people might say, okay, Cooper against Lane Johnson. Johnson will handle him. You know, Benito, he's going to go against Mailata. But inside is where they do a lot of things. And they've got guys who can win one-on-one, and they've got some really good stunt concepts inside that can be problematic. So it's not just the edge guys by any stretch of the imagination here.
Speaking of that, Greg, there's a guy I wanted to bring up. That's number 99, Zach Allen, who
really good player, Adam.
Yeah, not a lot of people talk about him. Out of Boston College, he became a very underrated star for the Cardinals. Signed a really big free agent deal.
Yep,
a few years ago. Give us an idea of what he does for their defense.
Well, first of all, he can win one-on-one in the as a pass rusher, but he's a really good run defender as well. I mean, and he can line up in multiple positions inside along your defensive front, depending on how Vance Joseph wants to align it. But he's long. He's probably 285. I mean, he's not one of those little guys. He's a big guy, and he uses his length really, really well. He's just one of those guys, Adam, that, you know, because he doesn't get 15 sacks, you know, people probably don't know that much about him unless you follow the league closely. But as a complete defensive tackle, he's probably top 5 in the league. You know, again, there's probably guys who you think of as better pass rushers, just pure pass rushers, but he's a really complete player. And don't fall asleep on John Franklin Myers either. Now, he's the quicker of the two in terms of, you know, natural juice. And he's another guy. You can line him up anywhere, but he's tough inside as well. So this is not an easy group to play against.
Yeah, I think it's also a deep group, Greg. When you talk about, I watched some tape and I saw, hey, Jonah Ellis on the edges there. He's causing some havoc. DeAndre Tillman gets in there. You mentioned, or Adam did earlier in the week, a couple of they have a Savion Jones who comes in and does some things.
He's a rookie from LSU who's a big kid as well. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I did Ellis coming out. I believe he's Utah. He's, you know, one of the Ellis brothers.
Sons. Yeah.
He's been better than I thought. I'll be the first to admit it. I mean, I didn't think he was a bad prospect, but to me, he's played with a lot more quickness and juice in the NFL in his year and a half or year and 4 games than he did in college. So he's turned out better than I thought he'd be. And he has a lot of good snaps, and he's a good pass rusher as well. And our old friend Alex Singleton, he never comes off the field.
How does it, Greg, the word I got from people close to the situation was, he under Schwartz, the linebackers play a little bit farther back. He might have been late to the ball, but you just talk about he plays every snap. He gets paid a lot of money, by the way. He got a huge free agent contract. A lot of tackles. I know tackles are misleading. It's not a great stat. How does that tape look like to you? How does he play?
Yeah, but it becomes more than tackles, because if they're not going to take him off the field, Adam, that means they think that in every package, and he plays in every package, he doesn't come off the field, that he is not a liability. I mean, that he's more than not that he's not a liability. He's a really good player. He's incredibly active. I mean, tackles. Look, we know that tackles for a linebacker, you have to look at the plays, but he is a very, very active player. He's got good size. He's got good length. He's a plus athlete, not a super athlete, but he's a plus athlete. He's just a good player. And the other kid who plays, Stranad, he's been there for a couple of years. He's a long, athletic kid. I mean, we're not talking about a top 5 linebacker in the league, but this kid's like 6'3", 240. They've got a lot of length and a lot of plus athletes.
Yeah, he's just a Stranad.
I've been waiting for that one all day. Right.
So, Greg, I would think that, I would imagine every offensive coach or coordinator would tell you the goal every week is to be ahead of the sticks and to be on script. I would think when you're playing this Broncos pass rush and defense, which also we'll get to the secondary in a second, it is ultra important for an Eagles offensive line that is sort of struggling right now and a run game that's trying to find itself, just to be ahead of the sticks to begin with. And then if you can, then maybe you can get some of your no huddle going. But I would think that primary objective is to get positive plays as much and early as possible.
Well, of course. And that's always the objective, but they're still a running team. For instance, through 4 games, Saquon Barkley has the most first down carries in the NFL. He's carried the ball 50 times on first down, but he's averaging 3.1 yards per rush, which is not good enough. Yep. Now, we've discussed the reasons why. We don't need to get into all that again. We've done that. We're trying to look ahead now. That's not going to be good enough. Now, again, this could be a game where you see them get Hurts more involved in the design run game, because you have a lot of juice off the edge and a lot of reactive juice. These guys fire, so Benito's a very quick athlete. Cooper's a quick athlete. Jonah Ellis is a very reactive player. He sees it and goes. So maybe one way to help the run game is to bring in some more zone read concepts and, things where you try to use their speed and their reactive ability against them. Again, I don't know if they'll do that. It was just a thought I had in thinking about this game.
Okay. I was just going to say, I thought just watching tape on them, Greg, and because they go up against Mahomes and Herbert, and this year they had to face Daniel Jones, and I watched a lot of their third down snaps, that the Broncos are pretty disciplined in how they rush these quarterbacks, and then they'll stunt across the middle while the edges come wide.
They stunt inside a lot more than they stunt. Yeah.
So I think that's going to pose a challenge for Hurts, who likes to then take advantage when those rushers get north to get up. But it seems like their goal is to try to keep guys like him from doing that and still collapsing the pocket around him.
Yeah. And I think most teams think that way. It's how you can execute it. But yeah, this is a tough defense to play against. I mean, they've got length, they've got speed, they're good players, and we haven't even spoken about the back end too, which is pretty good.
Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. So let's get there. Let's get there. But we'll get to Surtain in a minute. But a guy that I like for the draft, and some teams, Greg, told me Riley Moss. You know what? He's high hipped. I think he's got to play safety. Not sure if he's going to make it as a corner. Well, you've seen his tape. How's Riley Moss been playing out of Iowa at corner?
Well, first of all, I thought he was a corner coming out of college, and Matt Bowen and I had numerous conversations about him because he's obviously very close to the Iowa program. And I thought, given his size, his speed, his length, that he could play corner in this league. Okay. And obviously he can. He's a starting corner on a good defense. So their corners are really good. The question is, will Surtain, who more often than not does line up over quality receivers. I mean, for instance, he lined up over Quentin Johnston pretty much every snap. So will he line up over AJ? I would think yes. But again, we don't know the answer to that, but I would think yes. The other interesting thing about their defense on the back end is Jahdae Barron has not been able to beat out Jaquan McMillan as the slot corner. Jahdae Barron plays in their dime. He does not play in their nickel. So Jaquan Millen has fended him off up to this point in time. And McMillan's actually a pretty good slot. He's been their starter for a couple of years, and he's been a really good slot. And their safety position, I remember when he was with Miami maybe 2-3 years ago, and Vic will know him very well. Brandon Jones is a very good football player. And, he's just one of those guys. Again, not a lot of people know about him. He's a really good player. And they signed Hufanga from the Niners, and he's a physical, tough kid. I mean, they're really good on the back end. They're really good on the back. It's just it's a good defense.
Yeah. Vance Joseph is surprising to me. Well, not surprising, but he's one of the few guys, I guess, who has elite pass rush and very elite, corner, but still blitzes at a 30% or more rate, which normally if you think you've got guys who can cover and guys who can rush, you don't have to. Vic would never do that because he doesn't feel he needs to, but it just seems like we know that's Vance Joseph's identity and what he likes.
He's done that, but it's funny because, like I said, there have been games. I mean, when they played the Colts, they blitzed something like 70% of the snaps. I mean, it was crazy, but they haven't done that obviously every game. They're not going to do that every game, but he will bring it, and he obviously feels comfortable with his corners on the back end. I mean, Surtain is top 1 or top 2, whatever your point of view is. Moss is he'll give up some plays, Moss, but he's a quality NFL corner. And the other thing he's pretty good at is, and more teams do this. I see it all the time. I think it's becoming just the way teams play defense is late coverage rotation. Because what a lot of teams like to do, because it impacts your protection, is they line up with 6 or 7 guys on the ball, and you've got to account for them in your protection because you can't guess. So then what happens is they drop people out, and you get a lot of late coverage rotation, and they make the quarterback have to decipher that on his drop.
Right, Greg. Here's the question I have. We're speaking so glowingly about this defense. How do you beat them?
Oh, I mean, look, no defense is not beatable. I mean, if you can control their pass rush, which you can. I mean, the Eagles theoretically do have a good O-line. It hasn't been up to the same standard as the last 2-3 years. Riley Moss teams do go after, and there have been times when they've beaten him the last year or so. So, look, I don't want to make it sound like, nothing is 100% in this league, as you know. I mean, teams have bad games. Yeah, it's just the way it goes.
They got to protect. They got to protect.
But you got to protect. Well, and it's got good players at all 3 levels. I mean, they're a good defense.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's sort of glaringly evident about how to move the ball against the Broncos so far is that Jonathan Taylor, who's an excellent running back, had 165 rushing yards against them. And I think if you combine what Hampton did with Najee Harris before he got hurt, they were running the ball fairly well too. They ran for over 100 yards. So if there's going to be a week that the Eagles need to get Saquon Barkley going, it would imaginably be this game.
I mean, I think they want to get him going no matter who they're playing against, because that's sort of foundational to who they are. We discussed, of course, last week that it's just so odd, what their offensive situation is right now. Yeah. And of course, people will always say, well, it doesn't matter. They're 4-0 and that's all that matters. Sure. And, you'd rather be 4-0 than 1-3, given the way your offense is playing. But no one's happy about the way their offense is playing. I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. You can't just dismiss it because they're 4-0 and act like it's all's wonderful, in Eagleville, because it's not.
Right. I'm going to go out on a limb, guys, and say that I don't think 138 passing yards is going to cut it in this game, unless they get a huge monster game.
Barkley runs crazy. It could.
Right.
It could. Yeah. Let me ask you one question. Jahdae Barron, right? Now, I know some teams, hey, he's small. I know he's a good player. Is he a nickel or is he a corner?
He's a nickel.
How did you see him, Greg,
as a nickel?
Oh, wow.
I saw him as a nickel. Now, he played nickel 2 years ago at Texas, and his last year at Texas, he played mostly outside. Yeah. I saw him as a nickel, and I think he'll still be a very good player. I like Jahdae Barron a lot, but McMillan, he's one of those small, feisty guys, and clearly, look, we're not at practice. We're not in the meetings. maybe there's some week where all of a sudden it changes and Barron is the slot corner. Maybe it's this week. We don't know the answer to that. But up until now, which is all we have on tape, is McMillan is the slot corner and Barron plays in the dime.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. As we transition to the other side, I will say, I'll leave it with this. I think that under the spotlight this week, Juergens, Dickerson, and Barkley in pass protection. We've talked about them. They've been a little shoddy, all three at times in pass pro. And it sounds like the way the Broncos want to play defense and line up multiple guys over them and maybe force some 5-out situations or some situations where you're blocking somebody who's not coming. I think it's going to be really important for the O-line and the running backs to be in communication and pick up the correct rushers when they're coming.
Well, and they're also, look, they watch tape. So you know what? They're going to know that sometimes Barkley has issues in pass pro.
Yep.
And they're going to make him have to protect. You can do that. You can always set up your rush because coaches understand how teams protect.
Yep.
This is not a news flash. Coaches understand that.
Yeah.
So you can always make the back have to protect.
I saw a really interesting rep where Joseph had 6 guys at the line and he rushed maybe 7. He rushed 6, but Benito wasn't one, and he decked the running back. He kind of almost chipped the running back.
Right.
To throw him off the range, and that's exactly where the QB wanted to go because he had everybody coming at him. So definitely look as we talk to the listeners and viewers here. Definitely look for some interesting things on defense that you may not typically or ordinarily see from week to week. All right, let's transition. We'll talk about the Eagles defense against this Broncos offense.
Just one final point.
Sure.
I think when you play Jalen Hurts, and teams study this, they study how quarterbacks who like to scramble, how they scramble. Where do they go? Some guys run up the middle. Lamar likes to run up the middle. They study that because what teams often do is they know they can make the quarterback move, but they want to then be in position knowing how he likes to move.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you don't want to just make a move and then he runs for 20 yards.
Right.
So now, again, it doesn't always work because quarterbacks that move are usually good at it. But you want to be in a position that if you make him move, you then are in a position to respond to how he moves.
Excellent. All right, let's get into the other sides of the ball. First, we're going to hear a word from our great sponsors.
Hey, you know that one guy in the group chat who hit a 5-leg parlay week 1 and he wouldn't shut up about it for the rest of the season? Sounds like Caplan, right? Yeah, it could be him. It could be you, and we would all want to be you. MyBookie makes it stupid easy to get in on the action, whether it's college ball, NFL, super contest, and survivor pools, all the spreads, player props, and in-game lines that you could want all under one roof. What more could you want than that? If you're new to MyBookie, use our code, THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS. Use the code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. There is no better time to jump in right now. No better place to play. Football is back. Let's make some money with MyBookie.
Hey, fall is planting season. Did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when planted this time of the year? But you got to know where to start, and that's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air's getting a little chilly where you are, the plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. They've got everything your yard needs: fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, flowering trees, so much more. And Fast Growing Trees makes it so easy for you to have your dream yard because you can order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door. If you're like me, you're tired of spending way too much money on landscaping. And if you walk into one of those nurseries and you look at all the stuff they have, you have no idea where to begin. That's why you need fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter about the size of your yard. They got over 6,000 plants to fit any space, and a 14-point quality checklist ensures you will get the best quality plants possible. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code BIRDS at checkout. 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code BIRDS at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use BIRDS to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show. All right, this Eagles defense against a Broncos offense that, much like the Eagles offense, has been a little inconsistent this year. Let's start with Bo Nix. Year 2 of the system here. What do you see on tape from Bo this year?
I think he's struggled a lot early, and he's gradually getting better. I thought that early in the season, first 2 games in particular, I thought he was hesitant in the pocket when the picture was cloudy. I thought at times he had almost panic reactions to pressure. There were times I almost thought he invented pressure, breaking down when there were nobodies around him.
Oh, God.
That he had happy feet, and he missed a lot of, what we would call layup throws. He started to get better week 3, and then I thought this week he was the best he's been up to this point. But early in those first 2 games, to use Adam's favorite phrase, he was a tough watch. But he's gotten better.
Yours. Yeah.
He's clearly gotten better.
Let me ask you this question, Greg. So this is another guy. We talked about Riley Moss, the perception coming out of Iowa, and he's beating the perceptions. Bo Nix is another guy. Actually, even it was stronger that there was not a lot of love for him in the scouting community. We're talking about guys who actually scouted him on the road. They bring up what happened at was it Auburn?
He was when he left Auburn after 3 years, he was probably a non-draftable player.
That's my point, and I think that was probably part of it. But a lot of guys had him again, 3rd round. Sean Payton, who had a lot of say in it, loved him. That was his guy for the draft. Let's look at his college tape versus his pro tape, Bo Nix. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I will tell you this: his 2 years at Oregon were very, very good. I mean, and his last year in particular. And this is his 2nd year in the league, right? So he was in the 2024 draft, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So just to refresh, because this is what I do. Here's what I said on Bo Nix. My last, and of course I try to do all the top quarterbacks before I even get to the combine at the end of February, because obviously I do radio shows there and all I get asked about is the quarterbacks. So the last line I typed in his transition, you guys know how I do this. I do strengths to weaknesses in a transition. My last line was, I could see a coach like Sean Payton believing that Nix could run his offense effectively with the timing and rhythm element that is foundational, and the fact that power arm strength is not a prerequisite. And by the way, he's shown a better arm than I even thought, but I really thought that he would fit a Sean Payton offense. And as I said, I wrote that in February before the combine. I didn't know Sean Payton was going to draft him. Right. But, I got a chance to talk to Bo Nix leading up to the draft. And he did something that is rarely ever done by college quarterbacks these days. He controlled and called the protections. And I guarantee that really endeared him to Sean Payton, because, college quarterbacks don't deal with protections. There's a lot of NFL quarterbacks now that don't deal with protections. That's a different conversation for another time. But Nix was incredibly intelligent and incredibly aware, and and he's a coach's son. He gets it, and he, ultimately, what do coaches want? They want an executor and a distributor. They love a guy to have some mobility, which Nix clearly has. So he fits what pretty much every coach would want. The question about him more, Adam, was probably maybe people didn't think he was gifted enough. I tell you what, I thought last year as a rookie, he made some throws, because arm strength is not throwing a post. Arm strength is throwing a deep dig, between people. And he threw a couple of balls last year where I just went, wow, his arm is better than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's talk about the offensive line. Then this Broncos offensive line gets touted as being pretty good. Do you see it the same way?
I think McGlinchey is a weak spot in terms of one-on-one pass pro, but again, they don't necessarily do a ton of that. But if you get them in 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 12, they'll do that, because Sean Payton wants to get 5 out. So I've always thought, even going back to his San Francisco days, and even though he was a top 10 pick, that McGlinchey was in one-on-one pass pro. I think can be a liability.
So he'll see. Let's see, the left defensive edge of the Eagles. So
he'll probably see Uche and Zadarius Smith.
Yeah. Although I thought Smith has mostly been lining up over on the right side over left tackle.
He lined up at left defensive, left edge a number of times last week. I know that.
Right.
Greg,
go ahead, Adam.
No, it's just going to bring out in terms of their running game. I mean, you just brought up the offensive line,
which is important, by the way.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is what a great story. ACL, Achilles, led the Chargers in rushing last year. How's it worked out for him and R.J. Harvey so far from your tape study?
Well, I think Dobbins is looking good. I think he's a patient runner. I think he's got really good vision. I think he does a great job of reading what I call gap fluidity, because the gaps change when the ball's snapped. I think he has a really good sense of defensive flow. He's kind of a pace and tempo runner. Keep in mind also, guys, that they've played the most snaps with 6 offensive linemen of any team in the league through 4 weeks. So they're willing to line up and run the football with big people.
Harvey didn't. I think he's sort of been integrated into the offense more over the last week or two, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was tough to tell because last week they got ahead, late in the game, and I'm sure at that point they're going to give Harvey more carries. But Harvey's an interesting guy too. Harvey's got some serious juice now.
Yeah.
And he's really quick. So I don't know, if the game is close and kind of a normal game, I can't tell you how much they'll use both guys. I would say Dobbins is clearly their number one back, but they may play Harvey a lot. I don't know the answer to that, but Harvey he's a fascinating guy. I really liked his tape a lot.
And Jeff, always remember Sean Payton is a big balance guy. He will run the football. Yeah, he's a really good play caller, designer, and all that. But he's committed to running the football. That's been sort of what his foundation's been, quite frankly, to a certain extent.
Yeah, he also seems committed to giving a lot of different guys a lot of carries. I mean, this year, finally, it's down to Dobbins and now Harvey. But my gosh, has he gone through running backs over the last 2 years?
Remember, Javonte Williams, he saw that he was never right with the knee injury. Yep. Right. He went through it. He kept rotating guys.
Estime, Batty.
Right.
I mean, everybody. He was just throwing guys. And each week it would be a different leading rusher. So I don't know. It's like he was looking for something that wasn't there. But now he's got some, Dobbins, you hope, stays healthy. It seems like a nice thunder and lightning combo. Dobbins can hit you and Harvey can catch the ball. But I wonder about where
one other thing, just to make a point, every once in a while they line up in what we call 0-1 personnel, meaning they have 1 tight end and 4 wide receivers. They scored a touchdown on it last week to Cortland Sutton near the end of the first half. If you saw the game Monday night, they hit him on the seam ball. So Sean's always willing to do those kinds of things. You have to be aware, look, that's what defensive coaches look at. They're aware of these things, and then you have to have a plan. Like when they threw that touchdown to Sutton on, at the end of the first half against Cincinnati out of 0-1 personnel, they were in an empty set. You have to understand what you're going to get from different personnel packages.
That's a great point because and why you could maybe expect to see that against the Eagles, who have all sorts of depth issues right now at corner. If you go 0-1 personnel and Vic says, well, I got to match that with dime, now you're talking about getting Mac McWilliams and another defensive back on the field. And I don't know who
or if you put that out there early in the game, Jeff, and he doesn't match it with dime, then you're pretty much certain you're going to get zone. Because you're not going to match up, unless you feel Jahad Campbell can line up and play a wideout. I mean,
you don't want to.
You're going to find out. The point is, you're going to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It could be, Jeff. Honestly, on your point, we'll get to the issue with Ringo and Dory Jackson in a second, but this is something not just this game going forward. Before the trade deadline comes, they're going to have to make a decision because with Bennett's injury. I know they're 4-0, but you got to be proactive. This is
Jackson. Is he good to go this week?
Yeah, he's cleared. Yeah, he's good to go.
So he'll be the starter.
Well, but the question is it good enough? That's why I'm bringing it up. It's not been good enough. Jackson's not played at a particularly high level, and Ringo, okay, he didn't throw out him much off when he wasn't in cut when he wasn't had the ball wasn't thrown him. He looked fine, but you know what? This team's got. We're going to get into it right now, Jeff. They're really deep at receiver. Troy Franklin could run. Mims could run. I always love Sutton. Courtney Sutton's a great player.
Great player.
I mean, really good player. Pat Bryant was one of my favorite receivers for the draft who won't play a ton, but he's got size. Jeff, this thing is no joke.
Third-round pick. There are some weeks he's played and some weeks he hasn't. I really like the kid coming out from Illinois. Really good receiver, just lacks speed. But a really good receiver. Franklin is a speed guy, not a big guy. I mean. We'll see. I mean, and Marvin Mims is kind of the wild card, although he's lined up amazingly enough this year, much more on the outside than in the slot, which would surprised me when I, through watching their tape for 4 games but he is kind of the movement guy. So again, he's a guy they'll use in motion a lot.
Yeah, I think this situation once again begs for Vic to match up Quinyon Mitchell against Cortland Sutton, who is clearly, I would say, head and shoulders above the rest. I mean,
and he's predominantly their boundary X. Now, not 100% of the time. Sean doesn't play that way. Hey, there are times he puts Sutton in the inside slot in trips, and he uses him almost the way he used Marcus Colston with the Saints. Big body working the middle of the field, but he is their predominant boundary X. So it would not surprise me at all if Quinyon Mitchell matches him.
Jeff, and don't forget about Evan Ingram, who could run. I know it gets hurt a lot. He could run. There's a reason why they brought him in. So this is challenging, man. This is going to be fascinating to see what Peyton does again.
You got to get pressure on Nix, because he does have that tendency, like I said, to get a little frenetic at times. And you got to make him feel that there's going to be pressure.
Where do you see the advantage for the Eagles in the trenches here, Greg? Would it be over right tackle McGlinchey with either Zadarius Smith or somebody else, or inside?
The right guard is Quinn Miners, and that's where Carter will line up, 95% of the time, so you'd like to be able to win there. I think their O-line is solid. It's a good group. I think the center and the right guard are, basically inside is probably where and I mentioned McGlinchey. Yep. Are they beatable? Yeah, it's a solid group, but they're not unbeatable.
Right.
Bowles is a good player. He usually doesn't give up much in pass pro.
Well, it's a good match. It's a good clash of personnel, of talent, of styles. Would you say, because I know that you said that Nick's a little shaky beginning, but in general, are they a take what the defense gives type of offense? Are they patient enough to work it down the field against Vic's usual zone defense, or do you see Nick sort of try to force it at times?
No, he's not necessarily a force down the field guy. No.
Okay.
No, his issue is not that. His issue is he gets a little frenetic. But the other thing to keep in mind is he can run for first downs. He's a much better athlete than a lot of people even thought when he came out. And he, that's the thing. He can run for first downs. And, we know how much that matters when quarterbacks can do that, particularly on third down.
Jeff, it's interesting. He's had some high volume pass games or attempt games, but yet very little. Like first game against Tennessee, I know it's game 1, 40 attempts, but only 176. It's really odd.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's just going to take what's underneath him and just get rid of the football. But this is Jeff. I know that Denver's 2-2. We're not. We could argue whether they should be 2-2, 3-1, or 4-0, but this is a talented team that is probably better than the record.
Well, I also see these teams as very similar in where they're built, what their strengths, what they do. I would say the Eagles probably, when they're at their best, are a little more explosive offensively because they have great receivers compared to the Broncos. Have one very good receiver, but the quarterback for the Broncos can hurt you, as Greg just mentioned. He can get out of pressure and run and scramble and move the chains.
Even though the Broncos, even though Sutton would probably be considered clearly the most consistent receiver, both Franklin and Mims can run. And that's where you got to be a little careful because, we talk about Adoree Jackson. I mean, you got to be a little careful here. They might not be high volume targets, but they can run.
Remember, Mims was supposedly an elite deep threat coming out of Oklahoma. And remember, Franklin played with Bo Nix at Oregon. So this is interesting, man. We're given a lot of platitudes here for the Denver because they have a lot of talent. But Jeff, you're alluding to it. If the Eagles could just put it together, some consistency, this could be a very interesting matchup because Greg just talked about it. Like the Broncos have a beatable offensive line. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's some matchups the Eagles are going to win. They just have to exploit them.
And if you get Nix uncomfortable, Jeff, he'll throw some picks too if you get him uncomfortable. I mean, that's, I don't want to make it seem just like we talked about their defense, like, oh my God, this team's, they're shooing for the Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, of course not.
No,
but they may be the third best team in their division when all
right.
said.
But they're a solid roster with good players. I mean, that's what they are.
Absolutely. All right, we're going down that lane. We might as well finish it off. We will give you our score predictions and our game MVP in 1 second. Let's just hear a great word from our sponsors. Sports are all about competition. Every snap, every possession, every clutch moment matters. That same energy is what 1v1 Me brings to video games. Every single day, you can watch and stake on matchups in Madden, NBA 2K, FC, and Call of Duty Search and Destroy. All the games are streamed live. Every match has refs, and payouts are instant. And these aren't just random online lobbies. These are the best players in the scene, pros, streamers, and rivals. With season playoffs and the championship game on the line, every game matters. Over 100 million has already been paid out on the app, and the community is growing fast. If you're a sports fan, a gamer, or just someone who loves having a little extra on the line, 1v1 Me is where you need to be. It's not just about winning, it's about the bragging rights too. Every match has a chat going crazy, and you can back your picks in real time. Download today and use code BIRDS. Your first stake on the app is risk-free. That's code BIRDS for a risk-free first stake. Hey, Philly fans, game day is stressful enough. Parking, traffic, long lines. We've all been there. But when it comes to your cannabis, Camden Apothecary makes it easy. This is the dispensary for sports fans, just minutes outside of Philly with plenty of free parking. You'll be in and out fast, no hassle, no waiting. And they don't just care about convenience. Camden Apothecary is all about the guest experience. Their staff makes sure you feel taken care of every time you walk in. Plus, they carry only the best quality cannabis at the fairest prices. So whether you're stocking up for the tailgate, the watch party, or celebrating a big win, you know you're getting the good stuff without overpaying. They even show love to the community with specials for fans, students, service members, and healthcare pros. Camden Apothecary, top quality cannabis, great prices, and an experience made for Philly fans 21 and up. All right, Greg, Adam, you guys ready? Adam, we'll start with you. Who do you got? Who's winner? Who's the game MVP?
All right, I have it as a very tight game. I've got the Broncos 17, the Eagles 20. You love how I do that. I see the Eagles winning it at home. I don't see them losing. Some way, somehow, special teams. Jake Elliott's been phenomenal. Braden Mannett's been phenomenal. I know we don't talk a lot about that. Who's going to be my MVP? Greg gave me a little bit of a hint. I thought about it a little bit. Maybe the interior of their defensive line could, I don't know, shock the world, but I know Jalen Carter's dealing with something, but I'm going to pick number 90, a guy that has blossomed. Wow. That's Jordan Davis. It's not a guy we would ever think of. No. He's coming on. He's, for the most part not playing high up. He's getting better leverage. There's something about Jordan Davis that you got to feel good about because